put another giant trophy in the trophy case of suck for the Houston Texans. My God, what was that in Seattle from the Texans? Coming off of a huge break after a 2-game win streak and their bye week, the Houston Texans somehow go out there and look totally lost to begin the football game on all three phases of the football team. And then somehow, some way, that defense had a Herculean effort, kept them in the game, but they couldn't do anything against the Seattle Seahawks because they have one of the worst offenses in all of football. Now, they're not the Raiders, they're not the Jets, and they're not the Tennessee Titans. I erroneously thought they were the worst team in football as I was watching that offense be putrid, sickly, disappointing, and totally uninspiring with how they operated in the Seattle Seahawks game. And this mostly will be about the offense throughout the course of this, because somehow, after finding some things that worked, after finding some things that looked good, albeit against two backup level defenses, the Texans decided to abandon a lot of those things and decided to operate with the things that made them an 0-3 football team throughout the course of the first 3 weeks. They did not do anything well on offense. There's no consistency to this team on offense. In fact, I'm lying. There's consistency in that they're consistently terrible at offense when they play anything close to starting caliber defense in this league. And they just so happened to play one of the better defenses in all of football, one of the defenses that gets the most pressure on the quarterback, and coming into this week, the third-ranked rush defense in all of football. So naturally, when they have the third-ranked rush defense that they're going against and a shaky offensive line, the offensive coordinator decided to run the football at some very inopportune and sickening times and decided to do it again and again after it didn't work. And that's where we ultimately and wholly, totally begin this, is with Nick Caley as the offensive coordinator. That was awful. He has no feel for the position of which he is titled. He has no feel for this football game. Nothing is in a rhythm for this team unless it's a bunch of backups playing against them on the other side of the football. They look wholly and totally unprepared for how the opponent is going to attack them. Now, I'm no big fan of Dan Orlovsky and Louis Riddick, but they were baffled by the operation of this offense basically from the beginning, why and how they did various things. And it's all things that you and I have watched over the course of the season when this offense stinks. And that's primarily what they have done on offense, is stink. Nick Caley's inability to put together something that is consistent on offense is so disappointing. The Houston Texans made a change at offensive coordinator and made wholesale changes on the offense in an attempt to have a better offense this year. And somehow they have a much worse offense than last year. It looks totally like a mistake to have fired Bobby Slowick. Now, maybe they could have found different coaches to help Bobby Slowick and pull him out of that. Ultimately, the Texans made 3 changes on their offensive staff that were notable. They got a new offensive coordinator, Nick Caley. They got an offensive line coach in Cole Popovich, who was already on the staff with a crappy offensive line and a crappy blocking scheme, and promoted him. And they hired a guy that went to John Carroll, or coached at John Carroll, coached for the Patriots, and was previously with Caley in LA, and Jerry Shulpinski. Those were the only 3 adjustments they made to the offensive side of the football. And wouldn't you know it, the offense sucks. It's worse than last year. It's taken a step back. All the bad stuff from last year is present, in addition to some other really crappy things about this team. And Nick Caley, again, I said it multiple times, but I want to reinforce it. He's got no feel for how to operate this thing. He's got no consistency on when they operate some of that tempo stuff. His personnel usage is a utter embarrassment. I have no idea how Nick Caley can look himself in the mirror while they rotate offensive linemen at left guard, which accomplishes what exactly? I have no idea how he could, with a straight face, decide to put Braxton Berrios on the football field on offense when Braxton Berrios was a healthy scratch for multiple weeks for this team. But the moment Christian Kirk, who has soft tissue injuries nonstop in his career, gets another soft tissue injury and can't play in this game, Braxton Berrios not only gets activated for this game, but takes over plays that very clearly should have been given to Jalen Noel. Very clearly should have been Jalen Noel plays, but Braxton Berrios was on the field. And then, as if it wasn't worse enough that he's rotating left guards, which does what exactly? And he's putting Braxton Berrios on the field over Jalen Noel. He still puts Daria Gumbawale on the field in key situations, and Gumbawale nearly gets C.J. Stroud killed a couple of different times. Daria Gumbaole let the defender pass you because either you don't block the guy and he just dispatches you with no problem, or you block the wrong guy and CJ Stroud gets a free rusher headed at him. Because, yes, of course, there's lots and lots of free rushers because they can't block anybody. We'll talk about the blocking here in a minute, but let's continue on the Nick Caley issues. Nick Caley's trust of this offense, if somebody believed in me to the level that Nick Caley believes in this rushing offense, I would cherish that forever. His belief that those 5 guys up there that can't pass protect worth a damn and got blown off the football consistently will somehow, some way, finally go out there and manhandle this ferocious, nasty Seattle Seahawks defensive line was incredible to watch, especially in the third quarter when there was a little bit of momentum, when the Texans had something after they had got something going there in the second half, after Will Anderson had gone out there and scored a touchdown, which is something that the offense finds to be one of the most incredibly difficult things to do. Somehow, some way, the Texans have a little bit of juice. They've just closed the gap, and the Seahawks are only up 8 points. And then in the middle of the field, the third quarter is ticking down. Nick Caley somehow decides that on 3rd and short, he's going to run the football. Not right to the offensive linemen that have had just a modicum, tiny bit of success. He runs it left behind Laken Tomlinson, who they benched, and Ariante Ursary, who looks wholly unprepared for the jobs and duties of left tackle. He decides to run it that way, and they get stopped on 3rd down. So what does he do on 4th down? He goes no huddle and runs the football to the left, and they get stopped. Again, eliminating momentum that they had in this game. The belief in this rushing attack, which with running backs in this game averaged 2.3 yards per carry, which is probably what you should have expected when the Seattle freaking Seahawks are the opponent. But somehow Nick Caley believed Ariante Ursary and Laken Tomlinson and Jake Andrews and Ed Ingram and Titus Howard to go out there and move heaven and earth and open things up for Woody Marks to go out there and run the football. But you know what? They couldn't because they're not any good, okay? They can't move the pile on the ground in the run game, and they sure as shit can't pass protect. That is a awful offensive line from a pass protection standpoint. They get it wrong on stunts. They get it wrong on one-on-ones. They get it wrong on any type of blitz. Blitz is off the edge. Blitz is up the middle. Some of that's C.J. Stroud. Should he have seen the safety creeping up from, I don't know, Tacoma all the way to the line of scrimmage? Yeah, he probably should have. But once he doesn't see it, Daria Gumbawale's got to pick it up. Oh, but the blocking scheme's broken, so they didn't pick it up, and it was a free rusher to attack C.J. Stroud. Then there's Ariante Ursary, who just didn't block anybody a couple of times. Again, I said it earlier, but I want to reinforce it. He looks totally unprepared for the duties of a left tackle. He struggles mightily with speed. There was a C.J. Stroud sack and a pressure that got eliminated because of a defensive penalty. But once you saw that Ariante Ursary struggles that much with a speed rush, you just speed rush him. And you know what they did? They speed rushed him. You know what else they did? They blew him off the football. He did not look like a capable left tackle in this game. Let's talk about the left guards who can't block. I say guards because plural, because of course they're rotating a guy that they benched for a week, and the offensive line looked okay, albeit against backups, so the Baltimore Ravens. But of course they're rotating him with the guy that they benched. So Juice Scruggs played a little bit. Laken Tomlinson played a little bit. Neither of them are average on their best day. It's awful. Jake Andrews, He gets blown off the football constantly. PFF Ed Ingram, man, that grade's gone. We can stop talking about the PFF grades because the first real defensive line that Ed Ingram faced, they smoked him in this one too. Titus Howard playing the best football of his career, played the worst game of his season in this one. That was really bad. That was tough to watch. These guys can't keep C.J. Stroud safe to save their lives. They lose to stunts regularly. They lose their one-on-ones regularly. They lose to blitzes. They don't get good help when they leave tight ends in to help them. The running backs frequently make the wrong decision. Somehow, some way, all the issues from last year's offensive line are present. Do they have the same offensive line coach that was in the room last year? Yeah. Did they cheap out on improving the offensive line? Sure did, because they have a left guard who started the game that was terrible for the Seattle Seahawks last year, terrible for the Jets the previous year, and terrible for the Jets the previous year. Okay. Then they rotate him with a guy who barely made the football team and has been a center most of his life, but now they're playing him at guard because he can't beat out a guy that they claimed off of waivers in March that had barely played football. Shocker, he's not very good either. You know who else isn't very good? The right guard that's a reclamation project out of Minnesota. Now, to be fair to Ed Ingram, this is the first time he looked bad, but he looked really bad in this one. The reclamation project from Minnesota didn't look very good. Titus Howard, who's done nothing to ever warrant belief that he's going to be a long-term answer and should be paid as such at the right tackle spot. He didn't look very good in the rookie left tackle. Looked bad. So they kept a holdover at right tackle. They had a reclamation project at right guard. They had a reclamation project at center. They had two separate reclamation projects at left guard, and they had a rookie left tackle that a lot of people in the draft community believed should be playing guard at the NFL level. But the Texans, they know better about offensive linemen. They play him at left tackle, unchallenged at left tackle, might I add. He was the left tackle for this team from the middle of training camp on. They traded the guy that was competing with him for the job because, quote, he wanted to play. Okay, not like Cam Robinson's been good, but maybe he'd have been better than a rookie left tackle who looks lost out there at times. I can't stand watching Ariante Ursary just miss blocks, just having guys just totally and wholly run past him, or have him be set up and someone running past him when he probably should have picked them up. And it's not just him. The rest of the offensive line stinks, but they can't block anybody. Now let's get to the quarterback, who has to trust those five guys in front of him. But why would he trust them? They stink to high heaven. And look, C.J. Stroud wasn't good in this game against the Seahawks. C.J. Stroud had plenty of moments where he was throwing the ball into coverage. He was throwing the ball to nowhere. He missed throws where guys were open. He made some very curious decisions with the football. He holds on to the football too long sometimes. He nearly opened the game with a safety because he drifted back 18 yards trying to avoid a sack. And those are all things that C.J. Stroud did poorly. There's still flashes of brilliance in between all these. That big play to get the ball to Jalen Noel to steal a field goal right before halftime. The play where he stepped up, ripped the ball to Nico Collins. Nico Collins dropped the football. That was horrible. And there's still like flashes of brilliance, but there's not enough consistency from C.J. Stroud. Now, you can put some of that on the offensive line. You can put some of that on the offensive coordinator, but the stuff Stroud needs to be consistent in, he just is out there throwing the ball around sometimes. And I get it. Hey, you're down 14, 15 points, whatever it is. The clock's ticking. You don't have Nico Collins. The offensive line can't protect. I'm not taking a bunch of these hits. Let me get rid of it. But he still takes some of those hits. He got beat up to high heaven in this game. He still takes those hits. And some of those throws are going nowhere. Some of those throws are uncompetitive throws. The Jaden Higgins throw in the end zone was an uncompetitive throw. He missed Jaden Higgins on another one down the sideline. The throw over the middle trying to get it to Nico Collins where he threw the interception was a boneheaded move by C.J. Stroud. But how can I be fully 100% blaming the quarterback when he's got David Carr syndrome? I mean, they ruined him in 2024, more than likely. The confidence, the ability to stand and deliver that he showcased in 2023 has been absent since the middle part of 2024. He tries to extend plays. He breaks pockets. He doesn't trust the offensive line. I wouldn't either. I wouldn't trust them to protect my goldfish with a food supply that had been rationed out for him for an hour, much less protect my franchise quarterback. But he has to trust those 5 guys in front of him, but they have failed him. Nick Caserio failed CJ Stroud by cheaping out on the offensive line, not going out there and getting players that at least had a high-end level of play. Because here's the scary part about the offensive line and CJ Stroud having to deal with it. If you had a highly paid football player along the offensive line, or someone with experience who had previously, in recent years, played good football, you would at least have that thing to point to in the sky. You would at least have that thing to point to and say, well, that's what that guy typically is, and that's what he can be. When in the past 3 years has Ed Ingram shown that he can be something at guard? When has the past 3 years has Titus Howard shown something that he can be at tackle? Same question for Laken Tomlinson. Same question for Juice Scruggs. When have they shown it? It's a hopeless situation on the offensive line, which helps make the quarterback situation hopeless. Because if you can't win at the line of scrimmage ever, it's not even like, oh, win sometimes, dang, it just kind of falls apart. No, they consistently are bad on the offensive line. They consistently allow pressure. And if there was any little improvement from those early weeks, it's all gone as they just look totally lost and baffled in this one. And it drastically affects the quarterback. And CJ Stroud, because of that, he panics. Because of that, he doesn't have good footwork. Because of that, he makes decisions too fast, or he makes decisions too slow because he's trying to make the perfect play. It has affected and infected this offense to the point where they can't consistently put a worthwhile, watchable offensive product on the field. And on a night where the Seahawks and the defense did everything that they could to try to give you this football game, the offense crapped their pants and were terrible. And now you have to wonder, is CJ Stroud healthy coming out of this one? Because he got banged up in this one. Nico Collins is in concussion protocol, so the likelihood that he plays against the San Francisco 49ers seems slim to none. And no question what they might do with the inability to play Nico Collins. My God, how scared are they going to be to put Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll on the field? Because, again, personnel is a tough issue with this team. It's up this point, I would like to remind you, this video is brought to you by my friends at Sleeper. Sleeper, daily fantasy. Use my code Stoots, S-T-O-O-T-S. You get a deposit match up to $100. You also get a free $20 entry, no deposit required. Okay? We didn't win our Sleeper entries this week because we believed in the offense. That was foolish. We should have believed in the defense, and we should have believed in Jackson Smith and Jigba having a big day, but we didn't. We'll try to put together some winners. Sign up for Sleeper. Use the code Stoots, S-T-O-O-T-S. Terms, conditions do apply. This offense gives you no chance to be a competitive football team on a consistent basis. You'll have splashes and moments, but that's not going to be good enough against well-coached and good football teams. So the offense is putrid. It's pathetic. Do you make an offensive coordinator change? Well, my question would be, who in the high holy hell would you turn this offense over to? Even if you wanted to think about making a change to offensive coordinator and hand it to somebody else, none of these guys in the building felt like a good option to hand the offense to last year when Bobby Slowick couldn't get out of his own way. Why would you all of a sudden hand the offense to them this year when Nick Caley has shown a total and complete inability to operate as the offensive coordinator? Okay, I would at least have the consideration in the building of making the change at offensive coordinator with a thought and an idea that you could salvage something of this season. Okay, but they just may flat out not have the offensive line talent to do anything. And that's because the general manager decided to not only cheap out on the offensive line, okay, not only did he decide to cheap out, he decided to be very smug about it in May and say, well, if I'm not worried about it, you shouldn't be worried about it. I got a news flash for you. I'm worried about it. I'm really worried about it, and I'm really worried about it creating the inability to properly assess where your quarterback is as a quarterback and potential franchise quarterback. Because right now, based on what you've seen, any discussion of a CJ Stroud contract extension should be wholly and totally tabled. That you should put that out of your mind. We are in full-on CJ Stroud assessment mode. Is he a franchise guy? And we may not know the answer to that because they may just be so bad at the line of scrimmage because they cheaped out on the offensive line and they cheaped out on the direction of where they were going with the coaching staff of the offensive line by just promoting a guy from within. Okay, but of course he coached for the Patriots. So he must be God's gift to coaches, but we may not have the proper environment to assess CJ Stroud, but that's the mode that we're in now. You have to start assessing CJ Stroud as a long-term answer at quarterback, and then you have to start assessing everything about this offense. And when you're DeMeco Ryans and you take the assessment of this team and you look at it where they are right this moment, you have to have a thought or an idea or consideration that, hey, we didn't change that much on offense, and what we did change looks like it's made it worse. So maybe just hitting the reset button like it's a Super Nintendo back to what they did last year could go a long way for this offense, because the direction they're headed right now is not one that any of us want to watch, and doesn't seem like one CJ Stroud can survive over the course of a season. So that's the offense. All right, quickly on the special teams, Kaimi Fairbairn was instructed to kick the ball out of bounds at the end to save the 2-minute warning and give the Texans an opportunity to have that clock stoppage if they stop the Seahawks and get the ball back and try to tie the football game. Kaimi Fairbairn did not kick it out of bounds. That's unacceptable. Braxton Berrios being the punt returner for this team, that's unacceptable. They have to put Jalen Noel on the field. There's no reason for a guy that was a healthy scratch to replace a guy who was more productive than him. Okay, there's no reason for that to happen. That's my special teams portion of that. Now to the defense. The defense had a slow start. That's a pretty good offense. Let's specifically talk about a couple of pieces of the defense. Azeez Al-Shaair, you cannot do a Batista spine buster to a quarterback on the sideline. Okay, I know after the game he said, well, I didn't hear the whistle until he was already on the ground. You know where the sideline is. You know when the guy's out of bounds. You know he's not advancing the football anymore, and you know he's a quarterback. Don't put him on the ground. That extended a drive. That was a bad play. Late in the game with a penalty on defense, Tim Settle Jr., why did you come in with a lucha libre splash on top of a play that was already over? You know what that was? Personal foul, game over. Seahawks deal it out. You're done. Derek Stingley Jr., he's had a bad start to the season. I know he was hurt in the Rams game, and I know he played through those games. Well, guess what? He wasn't on the injury report this week, and he did not present a tremendous amount of challenge for Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jackson Smith and Jigba worked him on a couple of big plays, and Stingley also fell down defending a tight end early in the game. That tight end came into the game with 95 yards on the season. He got 35 yards in the first 2 catches that he had in that game. One of them, a huge play on Stingley because he fell down. There's no injury excuse for Derek Stingley. And yes, he had the interception later on in the game, but Stingley is not regularly making the plays that he previously made to get that giant contract extension and the all-pro accolades. He's not regularly making those plays. He's got to be better at the cornerback spot. Okay, he's got to be better. Petrie got by Cooper Kupp. They eventually seemed to figure out how to keep that from happening throughout the course of the game. Will Anderson, I tweeted during the game, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, they're going to make a play. You know what Will Anderson did? Made the play almost of the season. It would have been the play of the season if the offense could have done anything to capitalize on it, but they couldn't. So Will Anderson, the strip sack, the recovery for a touchdown, nearly turned the tide of the football game, nearly put the Texans back in the driver's seat to win that football game. But, of course, the offense sucks to high heaven, so they couldn't do anything with it. And Will Anderson had that. But before that, Will Anderson did not put enough pressure on the quarterback. Danielle Hunter, totally absent in this one. A non-factor in this game was Danielle Hunter. They pay him too much money. They have invested too much money in Danielle Hunter for him to be non-factors in football games. Danielle Hunter cannot be a non-factor in this football game. He cannot be a non-factor for this football team. He has got to get to the quarterback. He has got to constantly pressure the quarterback. They made an investment in him instead of other positions on the football team. That investment has to pay off if this defense is going to go where they need to go. As it was weird in the first 3 weeks to do, it is still weird to criticize the defense, though they had far more hiccups and WTFs in this game than they typically have, but they still turned Sam Darnold over a tremendous amount of times. They scored a touchdown, and they shouldn't have lost the football game. They have a defense that is a playoff caliber defense, but they have a pathetic offense that will slowly and surely sink this football team and drag that high-performing defense down to the depths of suctitude like the 1,000-pound anchor this offense is right now. So the defense could have been better. They got out-executed. As Ziza Shire said a few weeks ago, they weren't the best defense on the football field, even though with the turnovers and scoring, it kind of feels like they were the best defense on the football field. But there's still enough in that game for the defense that you'd say, hey, if you're just a little bit better. But again, feels weird to criticize the defense when the offense sucks. Okay? Could be better from the defense. Needs to be so much better from the offense. Just awful from the offense. And I do not know if they have a solution in the building. I don't know if an offensive coordinator change would happen. I know they don't have any offensive line solutions. They've played damn near everybody that they can. They refuse to play Blake Fisher. They changed the whole offensive line for him. In week 1, they refused to play Blake Fisher unless he's the extra offensive lineman. Trent Brown's been inactive for 2 straight weeks since he got on the roster. The other guy, I don't even know why he's on the team. He's an offensive lineman. He's been inactive for 2 games. He was on the practice squad for the Carolina Panthers. I totally forgot his name. I don't know why he's here. And then the 5 guys, 6 guys they run out there on game day, 7 guys, whatever it is, not any good. They're not any good. So they have the answers on offense? Probably not. Probably not, unless Nick Haley schemes it up or unless they trust these rookies and the rookies turn out to be really good football players like Jaden Higgins or Jalen Noel turn out to be really good players. They give more Woody Marks opportunities instead of all these boneheaded Nick Chubb investments. But, hey, I guess if you've got some seniority, some time in the NFL, you get the opportunity instead of the more talented younger player at your position. But the answers, I don't have them. And it certainly doesn't seem like they have them right now. So let's see how they recover from this one on a short week against a team that has lots of excuses to be a really bad football team. Like, I don't know, basically everybody on their offense being banged up except for their starting running back and their starting left tackle. And a lot of people on their defense being banged up, including losing their star linebacker for the season, their star defensive end for the season, losing more players. But somehow the San Francisco 49ers have 5 wins on the season, and they are near the top of their division, probably because they're well coached and their offense can operate at even a medium level, but certainly sometimes a high level, even though they have the backup quarterback and they've had a bunch of receivers miss time. And they got all the excuses to be bad. The Texans had less excuses to be bad, and somehow, some way, they're awful on offense. But that team that plays their ass off and executes and doesn't shoot themselves in the foot with a giant laser beam that just cuts their foot off at the knee, that team's coming to town, and they'll probably kick your teeth in. Because you'll make a ton of mistakes, and you won't be able to overcome your mistakes. And maybe the defense keeps you in the game, and maybe you have a chance because the other team makes some mistakes. But the offense isn't going to be the reason unless they find some answers to the numerous questions that we have about them. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. On your way down there, thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.